Welcome to Real Authority. Today I'm talking about Greenland to migration. I'm going to be unconventional and just get right into it. The original Greenland was good. I don't think it's like this ground-shaking masterpiece. In fact, I think that's the general consensus. It's a good disaster movie, and one that I felt really didn't need a sequel, and not really any incentive, unfortunately, because the original debuted in the midst of COVID, so it actually went straight to video. But at least it was budgeted modestly and ended on a pretty fine note. It does feel like it leaves the door open to more possibilities, although I would have preferred a more ambiguous note. But you know, it's fine. 6 years later, and there's a sequel, and the one thing that is probably going to stick with me is the fact that they spent $90 million on this. I'll try to be brief on it. Why $90 million? Like, I know there's more expensive movies out there, but this movie is not guaranteed to, like, make its budget back. Prime, it cost $21 million, and it already made half of its budget. I'm not sure what the break-even point is, but it is significantly lower than Greenland 2. Moving on from that, the original movie, again, really did not end in a way which really warranted a sequel, but I guess some crazy stuff happened to the point where the bunker was unsafe. Awkward transition to the plot. So now Gerard Butler and family have to go out and go to the beyond, where they basically have to try and find a new place for home. And I don't think it was that good. I didn't really have any high hopes for it. Like, I didn't expect the Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, because at least Den of Thieves 2 was entertaining and at least had more potential with its universe. It's not without its positives. I do feel like the acting's still really good, although it does feel like the actors are semi-bored in it. But at least Gerard Butler and crew, they're doing their absolute best to make sense of this needlessly convoluted story. But I mean, Gerard Butler's a reliable figure. Like, you cast him in a movie, he's going to try and go 100%. And even if you don't get 100% Gerard, you're still going to get a solid performance. So yeah, he's definitely the one that's carrying the movie alongside the rest of the cast. Forgot her name, Monica Barkardin or Berardin. Both Butler and her sell the emotional moments, of which there are very few of. But I'll get to that with the negatives. Rick Waman-Raw's directing in the original movie was very strong, and I do feel a lot of moments shine in which it does shine here. I don't know how else to say it, but I mean, it definitely has some good moments in terms of the directing, plus just good moments in general, not just with the emotions, but also when the disaster stuff happens. Like, I do feel like when the crap gets real, it does get real. Like, if you want a disaster movie that you don't really need to think about, this will probably be your best bet, because the disaster scenes in this are really solid. But that's not the movie. In fact, if it was the movie, it'd be more foreign to the original film than it already is, because this is so different to the original Greenland that it beggars belief. I guess starting off that point, the screenplay, I just felt it didn't really work, unlike the simplicity of the original film. Maybe this will be a small review of the original Greenland, so why not? Welcome to Real Authority. Today I'm talking about Greenland 1. Again, good movie. Could have ended on a more ambiguous note, but I do feel it has its strengths. Like, I do feel the suspense is really there, to the point where the opening scene, you don't exactly care about the characters, but once the stuff gets going, you really do wind up caring. It gives a pretty intriguing look at what the end of the world would look like and how people would manage it. To the point where, even if I wasn't entirely on for the ride, the longer the movie goes, it really does work. So the Real Authority approves. Jumping off that, again, I had issues with the characters in the beginning, but it ultimately went along to the point where I cared. The same characters are here, but the writing's just not giving them a lot, because it's just so overstuffed and convoluted. Like, the focus maybe is still on them for the entirety of the ride, but it sacrifices character and effort of doing that. No spoilers, but it feels like this movie is divided in sections, but there's not really any interconnecting plot thread, I guess. I don't know, it was just so bizarre, to the point where I didn't ultimately care about the characters, because it genuinely felt like they were adding more characters that the movie tries to make you care about, but it feels like they just throw them away, because maybe there were a lot of characters in the original one, but it was executed in such a way where it added to the suspense. Here it's like, okay, Gerard Butler, Monica, and the kid. Cool, I want to see them succeed, but I also want to see their characters develop. There's not really any room for development this time around. It just felt very bizarre, to the point where the emotional moments that did work kind of feel in contrast with the rest of the movie, when in reality it should have felt similar to the original Greenland, but it just feels like it goes for style over substance, especially with the disaster sequences, which I admit were good, but it genuinely feels like a wake-up alarm, because the movie is just boring. I am shocked how boring it is. Like, the original Greenland was 1 hour and 59 minutes, and even though stretches of it were kind of unnecessary, I did feel it had a good enough pace to it. This is way shorter at 1 hour and 39 minutes, and yet it just doesn't really go anywhere. Again, the disaster sequences feel like it's trying to engage the audience when the rest of the plot is just dragging on, which really does stink, because even though I wasn't excited for this movie, I was open for it absolutely exceeding expectations, because it did have potential, but it feels like the potential's wasted for what is pretty much a January disaster flick. Not trying to sound like a broken record or anything, but I really was disappointed with how much this movie really didn't capture the heart and suspense that the original had. It just felt like it was throwing everything they could at the screen without considering how different the story is to the original. Like, I get being different, it's a sequel and everything, but you gotta understand how to consistently move the plot along, and I just felt like they didn't really do it in a great enough way. Yeah, I'm going in circles to a point where I could have just easily not done a mic. Maybe would have done a short. But yeah, January movies are usually known for stinking with a few exceptions. And Greenland 2 is another one to add to the clutter. Just watch the original Greenland and just accept the fact that that's where the story ended, instead of embracing this movie, which opens up with flashbacks. In fact, they reversed one of the scenes from the original in one of the flashbacks. I don't know. If you set your expectations so low that you really do not care about what the plot has, you may have an enjoyable disaster flick. But I'm one who prioritizes story, even if it's generic, but it's gotta work. It doesn't here. For me, The Real Authority rejects 4 out of 10. Not as disappointing as my reaction to it may seem, but still it should have been a hell of a lot better. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and comment your thoughts, and let me know what you thought about Greenland too. Alright, peace.